So, good evening and welcome back to the part 2 of part 3. Part 3 to the part 2 of part 3. Yeah. So, now we're going to finish this. And if you didn't get what I was trying to explain in the last part, it's honestly not your fault. That thing is very hard to explain without me drawing. And if I started to draw, to take a lot of time, which I don't have. And honestly, while I was trying to explain it, I was just getting flashbacks of that video that man is like, you add this one to this one and this. I honestly just felt like that. There's no way to actually show you how it goes. But if you practice, or if you understood, lucky for you, then you just need to practice and practice some more. But it's not really that difficult. Maybe if you can find a friend who understands that, it will be much easier. But if you understood it, thumbs up. Thank you for understanding, because you're an understanding person. Well, now we are going to continue. Chromosomal abnormalities. They are the chromosomal abnormalities of importance to the educators are those brought about by the non-separation of the chromosomes into gametes during the process of meiosis. So, the chromosomes that didn't separate, I'm just repeating what they said in different English. The chromosomes that didn't separate, and this is called non-disjunction. Maybe she made a mistake, or maybe that's how it's spelled. This often results in half of the gametes having 2 of the chromosomes and the other having none. So when chromosomes are supposed to separate, 2 will go to one side. Do you get? And then the other side will have nothing. I don't know. Never mind. So Down syndrome or Mongolism. This is caused by the presence of an extra chromosome in the cells, making it 24 as against 23. So if the egg or the ova brings in 24, and then the sperm cells bring in 23, when they form, it will form 47, which will cause Down syndrome, Mongolism. You can remember this by, the extra one is pulling you down, if you want to quickly remember. So for Down syndrome, you have an extra one, which is pulling you down, Down syndrome. So sufferers have slitted eyed appearance, reduced resistance to infection, and always mentally retarded. Wow. Then we have Klinefelter syndrome. This is caused by an extra X. That'll be XXY. It is caused by the failure of the chromosomes to separate during the gamete formation in the mother. When such an egg is fertilized by Y chromosome, the result is XXY instead of XY. So meaning that when the mother was donating one X, or when she was supposed to donate one X chromosome, it didn't separate, so it gave out 2. Do you get? Non-disjunction. When they don't separate. So now 2 came out XY. 2 of the mothers came out. Now, the individuals are outwardly male but have some female characteristics and fail to manufacture sperm. So sterile. I think we've spoken about this before. Some may have psychopathic traits, criminal tendencies, and mental retardation. Wow. Serious. Now, Turner syndrome. This results from the absence of an X chromosome in an egg. When fertilized, such individuals have genetic constitution XO. Shouldn't it be? I don't know. They are usually sterile females with underdeveloped ovaries. So that means only one person. So the egg doesn't have an X, but the guy gave out his own egg, so that's to create a female. Now, sex-linked trait. The Y chromosome, I hope you understand Turner syndrome. So basically, in the egg, there was no X chromosome, but the guy was able to give out an X chromosome to form an XO. They're usually sterile females with underdeveloped ovaries. Now, sex-linked trait. The Y chromosome is usually genetically empty for sex-linked trait. That means the Y chromosome cannot carry any sex-linked traits or something like that. Most of the genes for the trait are carried on the X chromosome. Exactly. Now, some of the sex-linked traits are baldness, colorblindness, and hemophilia. They are caused by recessive genes carried on the X chromosome. Most of these Most of these diseases are common in men than in women who are usually carriers. Wow. Now woman they do, man. Life is tough. Environment and development. So this is basically saying how your environment influences the development, your growth of maturity, and everything. So identical twins have similar genetic constitution as they come from the same zygote, but in life they are different. You will recall that we define environment in terms of the factors which affect the individuals after the moment of conception. So to understand these factors, we try to group them. Prenatal factors. What that part is trying to say is that anywhere you find yourself in is an environment, to you at least. So the baby in the womb is considered an environment. So prenatal factors. These are factors which can influence growth. Family members. The child is born into a family and it's there that he learns the first things. So the family either has like a negative or a positive influence on the growth of the child or development of the child. And the institution where the child finds himself in, so the school, the religious institutions, and the media that the child is exposed to can also influence development. The physical environment. So physical environment doesn't necessarily mean like just where the child is, like nutrition, the condition, what type of food, is the water clean, and the other one can be facilities for learning. Is there a place for exercise? Is there a place where the child can climb trees? You see that children who are in places where there are more trees or where there are more fruits on trees can climb trees better. They are more developed for climbing trees and stuff. Now, how the environment influences development. Since the environment makes it possible for hereditary gifts, now there isn't hereditary gift to grow and bloom, we can say that all aspects of development are influenced by environment. Now, environment provides food for growth as well as opportunity. So, even if you are, I think what this trying to say is, even if in your genes you're like meant to be 6 foot tall, if your environment, you don't eat good food, you're malnourished, some of these things can hinder your growth. Now, however, there are some which are virtually under the control of the environment. So these ones are purely like under the environment. So the first one is language. Where you are born is the language you speak. Do you get? So the language you speak is like where you are born. Your trait or your gene cannot determine the language you speak. Social relationships. If you like show love to the child, the baby too will show love. Like it depends on what you teach, like what the social relationships around it teach or show it. Then motor skills. So basically, general motor skills are phylogenetic. If you can remember what I said about phylogenetic stuff. Then fine motor skills are ontogenetic, meaning that you have to learn how to do some things with experience and with teaching or stuff like that. If you have watched the march past during Children's Day or Independence, you will understand what I mean. Fantastic. Now, intellectual ability. I hope I didn't overcomplicate that part. So, general skills, although the child does not need to be taught how to crawl, that's a general skill, which is phylogenetic. I'm not going to say what phylogenetic is because you should already know it at this point. Now, but there are some things like marching or climbing which are ontogenetic. I'm moving on. And those things depend on the environment, like the ontogenetic factors or the ontogenetic development are influenced by the environment. I'm just trying to make sure that I didn't overcomplicate that part. Intellectual ability, even though we have said that heredity has a strong influence previously, the child has a strong influence, the environment has a strong influence. The child has to be stimulated for intellectual development to progress well. I've also explained this before. If the child has genes to make him smart, I don't know if that even exists, but the environment is not stimulating him, is not challenging him, the child's intellectual ability will not grow or develop. Now, physical development. The environment also enhances or also affect or influences your physical development. So, but it's okay. Environment cannot change your physical structure except there's an accident and a limb or other part is completely destroyed. But how well a child grows depends on the nutrient generally healthy conditions free from infections and debilitating hazards. Now, moral values and judgment are learnt in the family, so the environment is also responsible or solely responsible for the moral values in which the child develops, meaning that a child is not born with good or bad. It is basically what he is taught to do by the environment. All right. Effect of urban and rural settings on learning. So now this part is solely talking about, in the urban areas you learn this, in the rural areas you learn this. Now the rural and urban environment. The first one is socio-economic conditions. Socio-economic conditions. Now the income in urban areas is always higher, and the infrastructures, the facilities, the libraries, the network of roads is always higher. And it's always better in the urban areas. So these favorable conditions in urban settings create an enabling environment for teaching and learning. It depends on what you mean by teaching and learning, but I'm not going to go into that today. Urban schools benefit from availability of qualified and well-trained teachers. Like, what I mean is, a rural person or a person that's born will understand how to fish more, or will understand how to set traps, or will understand how to make fires or stuff like that. So he's also just as qualified in different aspects. But let's not. Government presence. In urban centers, there's a higher government presence than in rural centers. This nearness to the seat of government means urban schools are likely to be better provided and supervised. The background of parents. So urban areas will have better educated parents, and these educated parents will influence their children to have better education. Also, again, depends on your definition of education, because people in rural areas will have experience, and they will teach their children that, regular life experience and stuff. Now, cultural factors closely related to the above is the fact that cultural factors are likely to play a more important role in the upbringing of the rural child than the urban child. Why are they now saying law? The rural child is likely to have a different perception, belief system, local knowledge, and prejudices than the urban child, who is likely to be more cosmopolitan. So, presence of mass media and information. So the child in the urban place is more exposed to mass media. The concept of individual differences. So this part is basically talking about, all this note is talking about, everybody's different, even twins are different, and teachers should know how to cater for these differences in children. Now, the first one is differences in physique and sex, meaning that even if children are the same age or they are the same part of their lives, their physique will be different, and teachers should find a way to cater for their different needs. And then male and females are always different. So girls may not be able to perform certain physical tasks, physical exercises which boys can perform. They may not be as strong as boys. Boys and girls may differ in sewing and cookery, woodwork and blacksmithing. Girls may perform better in the first two, and boys will perform better in the last two. Still depends on person that's teaching them, but okay. It is also argued that boys excel in mathematics and science, while girls excel in arts and languages. On average, girls perform better than boys in reading, comprehension, vocabulary, and language skills. To cater for these differences, the lecturer or teacher must pay attention to girls during maths or science subjects, and they should also cater for boys during art subjects, I guess. Also, you should make arrangements so that smaller children sit where they can see the board. So you, as teacher, you cater for their different needs, different in intelligence. Everybody's intelligence is different. Everybody has a higher level of intelligence. So a teacher should break things down. Even if one person in the class gets it, you as a teacher should be able to know, okay, your intelligence is different from this intelligence. It doesn't mean like you are smarter, or sorry, your rate of assimilation is different from this other child. Now, it doesn't mean you are smarter than this other child, but this child gets it differently. So even if you understand, the teacher should be able to explain it in a way that the other child understands. Now, differences in age and rate of maturity. Everybody has different rates, different ages, and should be treated as such. Now, age of maturity, stuff like, even if you're 10 and the other child is 7, the child that is 7 can be more mature than the child that's 10. Doesn't mean that you should look down on the child that is 10. Everybody has different rates. So some children may not be mature enough to perform certain physical or mental exercises, while some will be capable of doing both. Educators who emphasize the concept of maturation believe that all development occurs in definite and internally controlled sequences. Now, to cater for differences in maturity level, you should only introduce concepts and skills to the children who are mature enough to learn such. Exactly. So the person who is mature enough to do that, give it to him. So don't give everybody the same thing in class and expect, why did you fail? You're dumb, bleed the child. No. The child's level of maturity is different from the other person. Now, difference in health. A healthy mind is found in a healthy body. In a healthy body, rather. A healthy mind is found in a healthy body. Now, some children inherit weak health potentials from their parents, while others are lucky to inherit very good health potentials. Some are partially deaf or dumb. So as a teacher, you should be able to, cater for all these needs. Some have bad eyesight, some have deformed legs. So you should be able to look at these things. Differences in children's background. So a child can be aggressive, a child can be loving. Why is that child aggressive in your class? You need to look at maybe the background, is being beaten at home, or the child is coming is depressed, or the child is coming is selling counterfeit or contraband rather. Selling contraband in the school. Why? Maybe the child needs money or to do that. That's just the way I understand it. If you want to read all of that, go ahead. Differences in character. Everybody's character is different. The difference is both genetic and environmental. A child may be a confident child and grow up as a confident adult. Some children are emotionally stable and never withdrawn. Timid children may result to withdrawing from social interactions which go on in the class. So as a teacher, you need to you haven't spoken, try to bring them out of their shell, especially in their formative years. You don't want timid children. So that will be the end of our class of the part 2. I think the next part will be summary questions to just help you go through everything. So now we've come to the end where we're going to take some questions. So now you understand the basics of meiotic cell divisions. Mitosis is when the cell divides into two where the daughter cell is exactly the same. Meiosis is when two offsprings bring gametes, when they bring their sperm cell and when they bring ovum, to create children which are alike but not exactly similar. So now you understand that. Understand how certain traits like eye color is passed down. Understand. Know the specific traits disorders determined by heredity. Know the environmental conditions that influence or determine growth. So know the specific traits or disorders. So specific traits are like eyes. Then disorders are like, the chromosomal disorders or sex-linked disorders or sex-linked traits or X-linked. I missed it too, but you understand the point. Now you understand how rural and urban areas influence learning, and understand how and where children are different and how you need to cater for their separate needs. I also somehow feel like I rushed this, so my bad, I guess. Now we are moving into the summary questions. Now, a man with one gene I also wanted to mention that you should try to memorize a few of those diseases under each one. So now, a man with one gene of Huntington disease has a child with a woman who also has one gene, or has children rather, with a woman who also has one gene of Huntington disease. Now answer the following question. What % of children will not have the disease You can pause the video here so you can draw it out. And what percent will have both genes affected by Huntington? So if you didn't pause, I'll solve it for you. Now Huntington. Now Huntington is under autosomal dominant, meaning that you don't need for the two to be present. You only need one to be present for it to appear. So now, my first question was, what percent of children will not have the disease? What percent? So now we're going to look down. We're going to see that only one child doesn't have the asterisk, and asterisk in this one is disease. So now we can strongly say that 25% will not have the disease. Will not have Huntington. Now, look at the one under the yellow. The next one is A and A asterisk. Now, because it's an autosomal dominant disorder, Huntington, you just need one for the disease to turn up or to show, maybe later in life, but it will always show. Now, the second question is, what percent will have both genes affected by Huntington? So now, that question is basically saying what percent of the children will definitely pass it on to their own offspring. So now we can look at it. The second one, only one, second one. So all these ones, there's a possibility that when the child under the yellow, when this child gives birth to another child, there's a possibility that he will give the A without the disease. But the child under this green, if you look at him, he has both. That means he's always going to give out that disease, no matter what. So we can also see 25%. 25% to answer that. Now, done. Massive. Now, next question is, a woman has no gene of Duchenne muscular dystrophy. You can also pause to go and look at which one that one is under. And marries a man who has symptoms and is affected by the same disease. What percent of female children will show symptoms of disease, and what percent of boys will be healthy? Now, DMD. Now, this one is an X-linked recessive disorder, meaning that my first question, what percent of female children will show symptoms of the disease? Meaning that my question is a trick question. Females cannot show symptoms of the disease. Should have paused before I paused for you. But anyhow, female children cannot show symptoms of this disease because they have another X. You get that will counteract it. So, trick question. If you were trying to solve it, sorry. Now, what percent of boys will be healthy? Now, if you look at it, under the green, this green is where all the bad stuff happens. Under this green, the boy doesn't have a Y to counteract. So even if it's recessive, to cancel out, even if it is recessive, the boy will still have the Duchenne muscular dystrophy disease or disorder. So that'll be 25%. No, but the question is, what percent of boys will be healthy? So I'm going to say 50%. 50% of all boys will be healthy. I didn't say 25 because I'm not asking for children, I'm asking for boys. So out of these two boys, one is healthy. Massive. Now, how does Klinefelter syndrome occur? You can pause and think about it. Now, Klinefelter syndrome occurs when the egg carries two X's. That means it doesn't separate. So that means it carries two X's and then the male gives one Y. That'll be XXY. Klinefelter makes the child to appear male but have some female characteristics. Now, at least 3 traits determined by heredity. You can also take a pause to answer that. List 3 traits or things that specifically for environment. So that's language, social interaction, motor skills, intelligence, and so on. Next one is if a heterozygous brown-eyed man marries a heterozygous brown-eyed woman. What percent of their children will have brown eyes? That's very easy. What is phenotype? Phenotype is the outward appearance. Now, full meaning of DNA: deoxyribose nucleic acid. Nice. Now, the Y chromosome is bigger than the X chromosome. True or false? And tell us how much bigger. I'm not going to answer that one. And then lastly, practice those X-linked, recessive and dominant, autosomal, recessive and dominant. Practice, understand it. I hope you already understand it, but you just need to practice now. And then you also need to learn those diseases under each one of them, just in case they ask you questions like this. So, good night and good luck.